Hello, everyone. Welcome back to ERP Talks. I'm Khalid Suleiman. Today, we are thrilled to have Eric Kimberling with us, a leading figure in digital transformation and the CEO of Third Stage Consulting Group. We are set to dive deep into the world of ERP. So, let's get started. Eric, welcome to our podcast. We are thrilled to have you join us, and we are so grateful that you accepted our invitation.
Well, thank you, Khaled. Very good to meet you again and to be part of the podcast. So thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so let's start. Eric, can you tell us more about your journey, the ERP consulting, third stage, how all of this happened and how all of this started?
Sure. Well, I began my career in ERP consulting in the late 90s, and I would love to tell you that it was all part of my plan to become an ERP consultant, but it was not at all my plan. I was hired by one of the big four consulting firms, big five at the time, in the late 90s, once I graduated business school. So I had just completed my master's degree. And prior to completing my master's degree, the year prior or the second year of my master's degree, I took an internship sort of by accident. It just sounded interesting. It was an internship with a manufacturing company that was re engineering their business processes as part of an Oracle implementation. And I thought that sounds fun. I love process reengineering. I like supply chain. I like strategy. So I thought that'd be a fun project. So I learned a lot about Oracle implementations, ERP implementations, but also, the business side of things, the operations, the organizational components. And then when I graduated with my master's degree, I was recruited by PricewaterhouseCoopers in 1998. And I thought, this is great. I can be a management consultant. It sounds like a lot of fun, but I wanted to be a business consultant. I didn't want to be a technology consultant. In fact, I was trying very hard to steer away from technology because I wanted to do just strategy, supply chain, operations improvement. So for the first year or two, I actually resisted the idea of being an ERP consultant pretty aggressively. I was trying hard not to be an ERP consultant. I wanted to be, more on the business side. But what I quickly realized is that you can't separate the two. You have to be both. You have to understand technology, but you also have to understand business. So I started to probably 2 or 3 years in my career really started to embrace the technology piece of it along with the business piece of it. So then once I stopped fighting it and just learned to enjoy it, it became very enjoyable. I started to love it, and um, so that's how it all started. And then, of course, early in my career, I found that there's a lot of biases in the industry, a lot of sales driven activity that was sort of undermining the success of clients, not intentionally, but because companies are trying to sell big software vendors are trying to sell big ERP systems to big companies, and the big companies weren't succeeding in those projects largely because they were focused too much on the technology. So I had this idea early on in my career about having an independent tech agnostic consulting firm, but I was in my 20s, so it's a little too early for me to start a consulting firm. But by the time I was in my 30s, I decided I would start one. So I started my previous company back in 2005 as a tech agnostic firm. And then the ownership changed a little bit throughout, after I started that company, and I left that company in 2018 to start Third Stage Consulting. So that's how I became more of an independent and tech agnostic consultant within the ERP space.
Okay, so your first company also was an ERP company.
Yes, it was.
You're doing implementations. Which software?
Well, the first company I started was independent as well. So it was tech agnostic. We did a lot of mainly software selection. We did a little bit of digital strategy.
Mm,
I would start to do a little bit of expert witness. We did some process work, some change management, but mostly focused on the selection piece of it. But when I started Third Stage, I wanted it to be more holistic and focus not just on evaluation and selection of software, but also implementation from a tech agnostic perspective. So since 2005, I have not been affiliated with any one software vendor. It's been a lot of it's been SAP, it's been Oracle, it's been Microsoft, NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, all the big names that you recognize in the market. That's I've worked with all those systems since 2005.
this is really cool because you have worked with multiple ERP softwares. So my whole experience with SAP, even S4HANA or SAP Business One, but
Yeah.
work with the other. And now I understand why you take this approach. You have this experience. You worked with everything on the market. So
Right.
that's really sounds cool. So the next question, I know that digital transformation and the ERP and the software systems, it's a challenging. It's not that easy.
Mhm.
So tell us more about those challenges and how this are affecting the future right now, because everybody is moving to the digitalization. So
Yeah.
what is the challenging in your opinion?
The most challenging part of ERP and digital projects?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. And by the way, just to add to something you said, I didn't mention this in your last question, but I started my career doing just SAP projects. So I was doing R3.
Okay.
That's how long ago it was. It was SAP R3, and I was certified in SAP right out of business school. So I was doing yeah, SAP for the first 2 years was all SAP work. So I know the product really well. I've obviously done a lot of ECC and now S4 HANA and a little bit of Business One, but a lot of S4 HANA type of projects as well. Um, but I think that the hardest part with these sorts of projects is that first, I think one of the biggest things is organizations have unrealistic expectations of what the project is going to entail. So they might get an overly optimistic proposal from a software vendor, or they might get a proposal from a vendor that doesn't have accurate assumptions around, how fast the client can move. So they end up with these unrealistic expectations early on, and that oftentimes leads to problems later on where there's downside risk and that sort of thing, or bad decisions get made. The other thing is the other big problem I think organizations have has nothing to do with the technology. It has to do with internal misalignment. So they don't have a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish with, say, an SAP S4 HANA implementation. Product's great, right? S4 HANA can do a lot of good stuff. It's a very powerful tool. But if you don't know what you want to do with it, if you don't have a clear vision of what it is you're trying to accomplish, and also what you want to be as an organization, what are you trying to be when you grow up? That's the stuff that takes time. It slows down the project. It adds to the risk of the project. But so many organizations will just try to power through that or sort of ignore that and just go implement S4 HANA, for example, without figuring out what is it we want to be, what do we want our future state to look like. And of course, S4 HANA, the functionality or any ERP system is going to provide an input to help you define what you could be in the future. But if you don't really know, like, how are we going to consolidate these functions, or are we going to move to a standard operating model or more of a flexible, decentralized model? You have to make these fundamental decisions and clarify that stuff before you start implementing technology, or else it doesn't matter how well you manage the project, you're just going to run into trouble. So I'd say the internal misalignment and then the unrealistic expectations are probably the two biggest things. And then the third one I'd add, which is sort of related to the second one, is organizational change management. Just making sure that you are able to navigate the human resistance that inevitably happens during a project like this.
100% with you, especially the expectations. Okay, so let's move to another question. And this question, I heard this question from a lot of business owners. They say when I should put an investment on ERP system, especially here in the United States. The SMEs. I'm because this is my focus. They are using QuickBooks. They are happy. They are. So when should, as a business owner, I realize that no, now I need an ERP software.
Well, I think the minute you start to recognize that your inefficient processes are multiplying, you're starting to see a lot more broken processes, a lot more manual processes, reworking or reentry of data. Once you start to see that sort of problem proliferate throughout the organization, that's a good indicator that your technology is outdated. You don't want to wait too long, obviously, because if you wait until the entire operations are redundant or inefficient, then that's going to be it's going to be harder to change later on. So the sooner you can get ahead of that, the easier it actually is to address. Otherwise, you wait 20 years or whatever it is. That's a big jump now to go from what you had 20 years ago to current modern day technology. That's a huge jump and it's really risky. So if you can be more incremental and just keep up with the changes, that's ideal. I'd also say that another reason why organizations should move sooner than later is that technology is moving so fast. I mean, the pace of change is just accelerating. So the more you wait, the more you're not just getting me. If you wait a year, you're not just getting a year behind. It's actually exponentially more than that because technology is speeding up. It's moving
Yeah.
faster than 1 year of time, and then as time goes on. So those are some of the big things. I think you do want to you want to have a sense of urgency, but you also want to be really deliberate and measured and pace yourself too. So I think it's a balancing act. You want to move fast. You want to address technical debt, look at those inefficiencies and find ways to use technology to fix it. But you don't necessarily want to jump in and change too much all at once. Sometimes for some organizations, they need to go slower, a little bit more measured, a little bit more incremental, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you're making some progress and trying to keep up or get ahead of where the competition is.
Okay, so let's say I realize that I need an ERP. Now I am taking a decision. Which ERP should I put all of that money? You know, ERP systems, it's not that it's not that cheap. It's not
Right.
affordable at some point. So in your opinion, is there like an assessment? Is there like a criteria of choosing the software, the vendor?
Yeah, I mean, first you want to look at what pool of options are best suited for your organization, and usually you're going to base that based on the industry you're in and the size of your organization. If you're for example, if you're a big multinational manufacturer of widgets, then S4 HANA is probably one of those options. You want to look at something like an S4 HANA or maybe Oracle Fusion, maybe Microsoft E365, but without getting too far into the weeds of different vendors, you narrow the field based on who you are. If you're a smaller, say you're a small or mid-sized manufacturer with just one or two locations and you're not global, you don't really have really complex business needs. Then maybe you look at an SAP Business One or an Oracle NetSuite or something like that. So, you want to first look at who you are and sort of based on where you are in the market, what are the best shortlist options? And that way you don't have to go, there's no need for you to go out and send RFPs, RFIs out to 50 different vendors because chances are pretty high. There's only, no matter who you are, there's probably only maybe at the high end, 5 to 10 really good options for you. And so you want to start off by narrowing the field as quickly as you can and get to those options. And then from there, narrow it down to three as quick as you can. Once you get to three, then that's where you can go into deeper dive demos. You can do the RFP process. You can, use other outside objective data to help you arrive at a decision. So I think that's probably the biggest, some of the best advice I can give. And the way to do that too is to also make sure you have your business requirements clearly defined. Understanding what you need, what your priorities are, and really have a good understanding, good vision of what it is you want from your ERP system. That's going to make your evaluation a lot more effective and efficient too.
That's also really a very good answer. But stay, I'm acting as a business owner. I have a lot of questions. So
Sure.
let's say now I know which ERP, but now there is another challenges. ERP implementation is complex. So do you think that should we hire a company like third stage consulting to handle the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, of course. So take this with a caveat that I am the owner of a company that is independent, technology agnostic. So of course, I believe that there's a lot of value in any organization in hiring a technology agnostic firm. And the reason that is because our job is not to replace or compete with vendors that provide technology specific solutions. So in other words, we're never going to be an S4 HANA specialist or an Oracle Fusion specialist or Microsoft D365 specialist. We're not going to specialize or have a bench of people that specialize in any one system. We have a lot of experience with all those systems and other systems too. Don't get me wrong. We understand the technology, but we're not going to be the ones that are sort of the wrench turners that go in and configure, we customize, we do all the integration. We partner with companies that do that are better at that than us. But I think so we don't want to replace those people. We're not here to compete with organizations like yours or like other companies that specialize in that sort of stuff. But where we add additional value is by providing sort of the wraparound services and the wraparound competencies that are required on top of the deep technical experience on a specific solution. So program management, for example, organizational change, the business process reengineering, the architecture and integration amongst multiple systems, especially if it's a best of breed sort of environment, or if there's legacy systems that are going to remain. Those are all services that we can provide it in a tech agnostic way. And you need that tech agnostic advisor to help you do things in an objective and unbiased way, rather than leading with how does the technology work and just looking within the box of what technology does. Here we look at, well, what are the business needs? And then let's reconcile, if there is a reconciliation to be had, let's reconcile business needs with the technological needs. And so having someone that's objective, tech agnostic, isn't getting commissioned on the software. We have no financial incentive to promote one product over another or one additional module or additional licensees over the other. We're not trying to sell software. And that allows us to be a little bit more focused and clear headed about what the real business needs are and helping the client from that perspective. So, yes, I think companies like ours add tremendous value and can actually save you a lot of time and money longer term.
So, do you mean, just to make sure that I understand this 100%? So, do you mean that, let's say I'm company X, Y, and Z, and the company business cycle maybe needs some consultant to check how is the business cycle, then we consider that we need an ERP. So you will come to us. We will do like some brainstorming, some meetings to see how the business cycle. Then you will give us some consultation to tell us, hey guys, you are not doing well on the sales process. You are doing this in a correct way, this in a wrong way. Okay, is this is the let's say this is the foundation. Then we will move forward to the ERP. You will not implement, but you will like witness or act as a project manager with the vendor. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll act as I'd say we'd act as a program manager. So the vendor is going to have their project managers, sort of the technical project managers. We're not replacing that role. But in addition to having a technical project manager based specific to the software, you also need to have an organizational change manager, a general process improvement manager, the architecture and data integration managers. So you have multiple project managers, and we typically will fill the role of program manager that ties it all together. And then what we do is we'll provide, it's sort of like filling in the blanks. We go in and we help fill in the blanks of what the technology provider isn't good at or just doesn't do. So, in other words, if it's like, just pure data migration and we need someone to really focus just on data migration while the technical implementer is doing the software design and build, then we can fill that need. Same with change management, process
Ah,
improvement, et cetera.
hmm,
So it's, if you
got
think
you.
of it like an org chart of a project, you've got the technical project manager here, but then you've got all these other work streams that may or may not be filled by internal resources or by the technical vendor. And then you've got a program manager to oversee the whole thing. And that's where we fit in, is we'll fill in the program manager role and then we'll start to plug in the gaps, throughout the project.
Okay, so do you think SMEs or SAP Business One or Oracle NetSuite, those small projects, I don't mean small, uh, but it's not
Smaller.
like S4HANA. It's not
Right.
like S4HANA. It's not like the big ERP softwares. So do you think also those small projects needs this as well, this service?
Yeah, they do. It might be on a smaller scale. It won't be as many hours. It may not be a full time program manager or a full time change manager or anything. But we generally, we work with small companies. We work with really large companies too. So we scale those services up and down depending on what the needs are. And of course, if every client's a little bit different, some clients have really strong program management, internal PMO capabilities, in which case maybe they don't need our PMO services. We could just be more of an advisor, a subject matter expert to help them manage the project. Or, they might have a really solid change team, a change management team, in which case we could just be an advisor to help not do all the actual work, but just advise them on doing the work. So there's different ways that we work with different companies based on their size, based on their internal competencies, and just based on what their needs are.
So this is really interesting because most of the, I don't want to say failure implementation, but most of the failure implementation,
Right.
I believe it happened because the customer don't have the enough knowledge, and have those expectations, and there is no this person, this program manager. It's the first time to hear about this role, by the way,
Right.
but it's really interesting because most of the projects that happen, we are doing 100% what as a vendor, everything, but in the other side, we are not on the same page.
Right.
So I believe, if and all the time I was thinking about that, what if there is a third party that can understand our language, and they are on the customer side, so they can tell them, um, uh, they can move forward on the project. Because every time, okay, we will hire a project manager, then the project manager didn't do his role, and as you know, at the end of the day, it's a failure implementation, if we can
Right.
say that. Or it should take like 2 3 months. Now it's 6 months, 1 year. So I believe that, and also I saw some percentages on your website talking about this. Um, like 80, most of 60%, I believe, or 80% of the projects have this failure because there is no uh, program manager or something. So uh, I believe that ERP vendors should consider this in the methodology. I don't know, but they should. I don't know. They should ask the customer that they hire somebody, or I don't know, but this is important because a lot of time, a lot of money is wasted because of we are not on the same page. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's very true, and it's a lot of time and money is wasted, and that's sort of similar to what I described earlier about the internal alignment and making sure that you as a team internally are aligned. But you also have to make sure you're aligned with your software vendor too, because a lot of times, if you're a software vendor or an implementer, you're used to just how the software works and how you've seen the software work at other clients, which is an important knowledge base, but it doesn't necessarily align with how this new client or this new organization is going to implement that same technology. It might be totally different. And so you have to make sure I think a lot of times organizations don't articulate clearly enough to the software vendors and the implementers what it is they want and need. And so if you're an implementer, as you know, if you're an implementer and client doesn't tell you what they need, you're gonna start guessing. You're gonna start saying, well, here's a great way for the software to handle whatever we think your need is. And then it's incumbent on the client to say yes, that's what I wanted or not. But a lot of times, the clients don't have a good enough understanding of what it is they want to get out of the system, and then you go live on this new system. All of a sudden, they realize, wait, this isn't what we wanted. It doesn't work the way we thought it would. And so it's easy to blame the vendor in that case. But really, you have to look at, well, did you clearly define what you wanted first? Did you sign off on the design? Did you sign off on the testing? Did you get involved in the training? So there's usually a lot of blame to go around. Sometimes it's easier to blame the vendor because they provide the software, they provide the technical implementation services. It's easy to point your finger at them, but the reality is, clients a lot of times are many times equally or even more responsible for success or failure.
Perfect. So let's move to the final countdown book.
Yes.
So, what inspired you to write this book?
Um, it was really, first of all, I've always wanted to write a book just for personal accomplishment purposes. So it's just always been a goal of mine. And so, right, I turned 50 in 2023 here. And so I thought, I'm at that age, right, where I'm 50. If I'm not going to do it now, then,
You look
not,
40, by the way.
well, thank you. I like hearing that. Thank you. But so it was sort of a good time I had been writing it for about a year. So it took about a year and a half to write it. So I knew that it was past due. I felt like I've been wanting to do it seriously for about 10 years. And so I thought, I just need to do it. So I thought it was actually really hard for me to write because I didn't know what to focus on at first. So when I first started writing it, it was just all over the place. Because think about writing, if you take all the knowledge you have and you write a book about it, it's hard, right? Because you just have so many different experiences and clients that you've worked with and experiences you've had. So I really had trouble focusing, but I had some people help me kind of narrow it down and get an outline that made a little more focused. So I focused this one. The final countdown is about digital strategy. So it's really focused on how to prepare and plan for a transformation, define what your strategy is, your roadmap, and making it fit you as an organization. And then I plan to write other follow-up books to follow up that are more focused on change management or focused on specific case studies, although there are case studies in this book as well. But I might write a whole book that's just case studies of, examples of implementations. So there's other books I want to write, but I think the first one is always the most difficult, and then I'm already starting to put ideas together for my second book.
So the final countdown, this book is about your whole experience on this industry. It's generic. It's not on a specific topic.
It's I'd say it's specific to digital strategy and planning. So it's not getting super deep into technologies, or it's not getting super deep into specific software or program management or anything like that. It's more, if you're just starting a journey, it's perfect. It's a great way to sort of think through how to define the right strategy, the right roadmap, the right plan for your organization. So that's why I focus more on the front end, and then future books are going to go deeper into change management, into program management, and things of that nature. And you can find that book, by the
Good
way,
luck.
at the third,
Yeah,
it's thefinalcountdown.com. If you just go to thefinalcountdown.com, that's where you can find more
yeah,
information
yeah.
about
We
the book.
find the book and we will share it 100%. And I will need a copy with your signature.
Yes, I I have a copy right here that I'm prepared to sign and send to you. So
Yeah,
it's a hard copy.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Okay, so moving to our next question, uh, and it is about the vendors. ERP vendors, um, uh, like the customers are searching for the vendors. Also, the vendors are searching for customers. So, do you think that there is, because, and I'm asking you that because you are a geek on the content and the YouTube and the social platforms. So, do you think, as an ERP vendor, if you will give me an advice, what should I do to reach out to customers and close deals?
To get more leads with content, you mean, specifically, or
Yeah, we are doing this content. The customer behavior is different right now. It's not like, so people 10, 20 years ago was doing cold calls.
yeah,
um that was knocking the doors, going to the customer, and you know that. But now, and because you are in working also and you are focusing on the digital transformation, so do you think that this affect also the sales process? um it's not that easy.
yeah. It's not. And creating content can be a grind. It can be difficult because you have to. It's not enough to just occasionally create some videos and then put them out, and then you forget about it for a few months, and then you come back and do more. You have to be very consistent, and it's hard to be consistent when you're just starting out because you don't see any results right away. I mean, I remember when I put my first YouTube videos out, I would get like 12 views or something like that, and I thought, well, it's a little bit discouraging. I put all this time into that video, and only 12 people saw it. But now, that same video that had 12 views,
65,000.
yeah, it's gonna have tens of thousands now because it goes, eventually the audience will find it. The beauty of YouTube is that YouTube will find the right audience. No matter how big or small that audience is, the algorithm is it's highly effective. I think it's really good at pushing the content out to people that are looking or potentially interested in that content. Um, and the same, maybe to a lesser degree with podcasts too. Podcast platforms are pretty good at pushing, new episodes or new content out to people. And then of course, you share all that stuff on. You can do blogs. It's not just videos. You can do blogs. You can do white papers and that sort of thing. But I think the key to your question about how you convert that content into leads is, first of all, you have to play the long game. Unless you're paying for exposure, like paying for YouTube ads, paying for Google ads, which you can do. I found that to be super expensive and not effective, in my opinion. I know a lot of companies do it, so I don't want to, criticize people that have had success with it. We have not had success with it, so we rely more on the organic results. And when you rely
Oh
on the
my
organic
god,
result, I'm sorry.
really?
Yeah,
This
we
is
don't pay.
unbelievable.
Yeah, we don't pay for any of that stuff. You can, if you want to get 100,000 views on this video right here that we're filming, this podcast episode, you can get 100 views on it pretty easily, pretty quickly. You just have to pay for it. And so if you don't want to pay for it though, and you don't want to pay an arm and a leg to get 100,000 views, you have to create content that people want, and you have to keep creating content that will start to reel people in. It starts to create like a flywheel. The flywheel just starts to speed up, and then it takes off. But sometimes that takes it could take a year or 2, 3 years or more, for it to really get going. I mean, if you look at my YouTube channel now, I mean, I'm getting, sometimes 1,000 new subscribers a day. It's just that, but it was nowhere like that 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was getting like a subscriber a day, maybe if I was lucky. So, you just have to, but you have to stick with it, and then eventually it'll
Yeah.
it'll take off. But I think the key too is you don't want to just go viral. You want, to your point, you want to get some leads out of it. And some people will inevitably reach out to you naturally. They'll look you up. They'll look up Khaled and say, okay, I like this Khaled guy. I'm going to look up his company. I'm going to reach out to him. Some people will do that, but if it's more effective, you'll get more of those people if you say, I have a piece of content that you can access, a premium content. Just go to my website, put in your information, you can have it. Sort of the free content model where you're providing some initial content that anyone can watch, but then you provide something else that says, here's an even deeper dive into whatever it is. You can go get it for free, download it here. And then that way you get the lead, and then you can reach out to that person and say, hey, I saw you downloaded my premium content. Um, and then you can start the conversation there. That's the that's our secret sauce for our marketing process and approach, which I'm happy to share. I don't mind.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you mentioned organic 100%. I don't know if 100%, but you mentioned that you're not paying for ads. It's everybody is doing ads, but also as you
That's why it's
mentioned,
so
the
expensive now.
valuable. Yeah, it's so expensive. I was talking to a CEO of a very big ERP company, and he told me, Khalid, we are paying for each application we develop $2 for the development and $10 for the marketing and ads.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I believe that, oh, should we work as a marketing team now?
Right. Right. Well,
And
and
ignore this development and this. It, it, it's unbelievable.
it
Too
is, and
much
I
money.
it is, and I just I don't know if I told you this right as we're filming this podcast episode. Just in the last few weeks, we've launched a sister company of ours called Major Tom Productions. And that company it owns all the content creation now, basically, that I do. So my YouTube channel, my podcast, we're creating new podcast series on different segments within technology, and we're taking sponsorships and collaborating with companies that want to get exposure, but they don't want to pay Google ads, they don't want to pay for YouTube ads or whatever. So we're providing sponsorship opportunities with our content, starting in 2023, or I'm sorry, in 2024. So that's another option that companies like yours
Oh,
and our peers that might be interested in reaching a broader audience. You're getting more exposure without having to wait 3 or 5 years or 10 years or whatever it takes to build up the content machine that creates those leads on their own.
this is so smart. Um, and we will copy you, by the way. We are copying you.
I I take it
Yeah,
as flattery. I don't view it as a
I
threat.
I
So I'm happy to.
to be honest with you, when I sent to you, I said he will not reply to me. But you replied and you accepted the invitation because
Yeah.
all the time I see your videos. And the first video that I saw was SAP versus Oracle NetSuite. And oh my God, this guy knows all of that about SAP.
Right.
Then I saw that you have a very perfect professional content about the ERP industry, only the ERP. And also it's a very niche market. How we get 60,000 people on the YouTube? It's very niche when you have like 1,000, 2,000. Oh my God, you did a very big thing. But when you have 60, that means that your content is valuable.
Yeah.
And that takes me to the next question about the balance of time. So you are doing consultation, and also you have this YouTube channel, you have this platforms, those videos, those this podcast also. How did you balance your time to do all of that?
Well, a couple things. First is ever since the very start, I would film and create content in batches. So in other words, I quickly learned that it's not effective to say, I need a blog for tomorrow. So I'm going to go write a blog right now, and it's going to get published tomorrow. Instead, what I would do is say, okay, I'm going to create 4 pieces. I'm going to spend half a day today creating 4 pieces of content or 10 pieces of content or whatever it is. And then that gives me some buffer to, to drip, that new content out to people over time. And if I do that once a month or however long, I can just do it once a month and I carve out half a day to do content creation. And that gives you content to go through the whole month. So if you can break it up into batches to where you're not feeling like you have to take a break every day or every other day or even every week to create new content, you can really focus your time. So I can go back to running my company while new videos continue to come out on my YouTube channel. I'm not creating those videos 3 or 4 times a week, even though I have 3 or 4 new videos every week. I already created those a month ago. In one day, I created a ton of it, and then I just forgot about it, and I went back to running the company. So for me, it's a time management thing, and also, as a company have grown, I have the luxury of having a team now that supports me. So I can create a video and just hand it off and someone's going to go edit it, promote it, post it, all that stuff. So it frees me up to do what I do. And then of course we have our team is, 70 plus people and growing. So there's a lot of people that can help make sure that we're continuing to deliver and do all the other things that need to happen to make the company run.
That's really cool. 70 people, you are managing 70 people and you're doing this content and you're doing the consultation thing. So this is unbelievable. Uh, and that makes me, when I feel that, oh, I'm busy. No, 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 no. You're not busy.
Right.
So this is so 70 people. How did do you think that managing people um, is not that easy thing, especially on the ERP industry or on the digital transformation thing? Do you think that it's not that easy to manage 70 people?
No, it's not easy, but when you have a good leadership team that can help you manage those 70 people, I don't have 70 direct reports. I have 6, maybe 6 or 7 at the most people that report directly to me. And then those 6 or 7 people manage, the other, 55 people or whatever it is. So that's the key. And I think the big thing too that I learned is if you build a very strong culture and you have a really solid culture, whatever you want it to be, it should reflect you as a leader. I mean, I think you should sort of have it reflect your personality and what, you as a face of a company. You don't want to hire a bunch of people that are just like you, but you want to hire people that share the same values, that have the same approach, that have, similar views of the world and people you just like being around. If you do that, it doesn't make it easy, but it makes it easier to manage a bigger team. And so, I find that there's actually more autopilot type activities that people are working hard, but I don't have to intervene as much as I did back when we were like 20 people. Partly because I feel like we've built such a strong team that we're not perfect, but I think we just are more aligned than we've ever been.
So let me take from your words. You mentioned that you mentioned the values. So does that mean when you hire somebody, because there's different schools, uh, some people are focusing on the experience, on the talent, even if there is no values, even if those people are toxic. He will.
Right.
I need this guy. He is 10 years experience. He can do one, two, three. It doesn't matter. And there is another school, and I am with this school. It's about the values. So I focus on the values, and after that, I can um, teach them. I can train them until they be uh, very talented. Which school uh, do you believe that it's, or do you think the hybrid one is which one?
I think it's a hybrid, but I'd say if you obviously have to have a minimum level of talent and skill set, right? But you don't necessarily need to have the best, most talented person to be successful. In fact, I'll take someone who's a better cultural fit, who I think is just going to get along with our team better and fit with our clients better. Maybe there's someone out there that could be 20 or 30% smarter or 20 or 30% more experienced, but I'll take that person with a lesser experience, not because I want to diminish the value we provide to our clients, but because I know that person's going to fit in better. And as a team, it's going to deliver more value than it would if I have a bunch of, top notch A++ players that are all, they don't get along, they don't work well as a team, but they're the smartest people I could find. And I used to do that early in my career. Actually, I would find the smartest people I could find. I wanted, because I was younger. I was 32 when I started my last company, so I needed people that were 30 years into their career and had, I was trying to compensate for the lack of experience I had. So I would err on too far the side of hiring really talented, really smart people, only to find that sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's actually toxic to have that many really, really top performers it's just hard for them to work together. And if you look at sports teams too, it's the same thing. A lot of times on paper,
Mm,
they look like, you look at all these
yeah.
teams throughout the world in soccer and or football and whatever sport, you've seen cases over and over where they had all these all-star players together, but they couldn't win. They couldn't win because they just couldn't operate and function as a team. And I think the same thing is true when you're building a consulting practice or any sort of team really. But consulting is so people intensive and it's a service, so you have to be even more intentional about it. So I think that's the way I view it.
Yeah, this is also so smart from you. I never think about it. All the time I'm thinking why there is no team have like Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi.
Right,
But
right.
if this happened,
That's a great
a
example.
lot of fights.
Yes, yeah. There, you're not going to win a lot of games. You're going to have a lot of really good talent. You're going to have a lot of good highlight plays, but the team's not going to
Yeah,
win.
yeah, that's really smart from you, Eric. That's really smart. So the team here was in the questions uh, they mentioned that there is a game that we will play right now, and it's just to have some fun on this podcast.
Okay,
The name of the game is Perspective Play.
okay,
Perspective Play. So I will share some thoughts and statements for you, and you respond
okay.
about
Sounds
this.
good.
Okay, so the first statement: master a skill, share it with the world, and watch how it turns into wealth.
And watch how it
What do you
turns
think?
into
Wealth, wealth.
wealth. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Listening. So I'd say asking good questions and listening to the answers. If you're trying to, whatever you do, even if it's not ERP consultant, even if you're a salesperson, this is definitely true. It's even more true if you're in sales or some sort of people focused business. But I think if you can ask good questions and listen and understand, that's going to help you create a lot of wealth because you'll see more opportunity and you'll learn more about the world in general by asking a lot of really good questions and listening. So I think that's probably, especially in consulting and even in sales too, I think that's the most important thing to create wealth and success, in especially in these industries.
Okay, cool. So the next one: focusing on the future can steal your present.
Yeah. Can it steal your present?
Uh, can
Can it
steal
steal your
your present. Is that
Yes.
true?
That's a really good question. I think you need Yeah, I think you need I do agree with that. I think it can. If you focus too much on the future without understanding where you are and how you got to where you are and what mistakes you've made in the past, then yes, focusing too much on the future, you don't want to dilute or dismiss your current state and how you got there. So yes, I agree. I think you need both.
Okay, so perfect. The last one: our feelings can shape our future for
Yes.
better or worse.
Yes. I totally agree with that. So
Hmm.
if you're feeling angry or frustrated or sad, that's going to that it happens, right? We're humans, so we are going to have negative feelings, but that will affect your future if you hang on to that for too long. So, but if you
Hmm.
focus on optimism and opportunity and happiness and things of that nature, it's generally going to lead to happiness.
Okay, perfect. So this is the game. So before we close this episode, I still have one or two questions.
Okay.
So if we will go back to the converting leads, you and we are talking about the content. So do you believe also that the summits, the trade shows, those events also is good for any company to attend and make relationships, uh, meet new SMEs, founders, CEOs. Do you believe in that, or it's only the digital platform? Everything is digital.
No, I think I mean, I guess I'm old fashioned a little bit, but I think in person is much better. You just get to know people better and the connection's deeper. So, you and I can have this conversation remotely and it's great. I enjoy this conversation and I hope your
Me
audience
too.
enjoys it too. But if we were in person, this would be an even better conversation. Just because
Yeah,
you could see how I'm reacting. I could see you better. There's something about in person that I don't care what other people say. You don't get it on Zoom. This is better than a phone call for sure, but it's not the same as being in person. So, yeah, so I think the more relationships and connections you can build in the space, it helps to do that. Also, I think half the value of conferences is the accidental discoveries you make in a conference. You accidentally run into someone that you meet that you wouldn't have met on the Zoom call or on a video platform. You're at a networking event and you get to know someone. Those are people you wouldn't meet over Zoom. Even no matter how hard you try to create a social environment, it's just not the same as physically. I'm walking to go to the men's room, let's say, and I bump into you and I say, "Oh, Khaled, how are you? My name's Eric," and we start to meet. That just wouldn't happen on a Zoom call.
yeah. So meeting people in person um, is better than that. I am. This makes sense also in this world. People have trust issues also. Um,
Yeah.
so meeting people and dealing with them face to face is better. I'm also 100% with you on that. So your insights are invaluable, and I really learn from you. Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you to our listeners. Don't forget to check out Eric's book and YouTube channel for more insights.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.